Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay. So welcome to Let's Talk by Hervé Leger. Once again, I'm Kidron. I'll be your host for today. And thank you guys so much for coming out. We're going to have a very interesting discussion with some very prominent individuals in the ballroom scene and some people from Center South as well. And what we're going to be talking about is ballroom and then creating the bridges for sexual health, mental health, and substance abuse. So before we go ahead and get started, I'm just going to go ahead and have our lovely panelists go ahead and introduce themselves one by one so we can get to know each other.
Hi everyone, my name is Diamond Xavier. I am currently the West Coast Princess of the House of Yaki
My name is legendary Isla Ebony, formerly LA Mother. I'm now the West Coast Overseer, but we've changed the term because of its historical context.
Amen.
Okay.
So I am the West Coast Director of the House of Ebony.
Hello. Oh, right. Hi, my name is Calypso Jate Balmain. I'm the West Coast Mother of the House of Balmain.
Testing. For the few of you who might not know, I am the endlessly whimsical Byron. Miyaki Moonlight!
My name is Cedric, but you can call me Swift Anastasia Beverly Hills Karan Balvan for short.
Hi,
Sure, hi.
Hi, my name is Daisha Walker. I'm the linkage to care specialist for Mocha. I currently operate from our Center South location in Woodward Park.
That's in the side.
Hey everyone, my name is Arturo. I'm a mental health therapist with Center South and Mi Centro.
All right, awesome. Now, let's go ahead and jump right into this conversation. Now, how this is going to work, I'm just going to go ahead and ask the question, and then whoever wants to answer, just go ahead and raise your mic and answer the question. And then if you want to piggyback on it, you can as well too, and then we just keep moving like that, okay? Awesome, let's go. So, let's begin with the challenges in accessing information. What are the biggest barriers for ballroom youth in accessing accurate and comprehensive sexual health information? Do you need me to repeat it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So, what are the biggest barriers for ballroom youth in accessing accurate and comprehensive sexual health information?
Since y'all begging, as previously stated, I am the incomparable Byron Miyaki Moonlight. But answering the question, one thing, first and foremost, stigma. Because I also remember one thing, shout out first and foremost to the Los Angeles LGBT Center, and namely Center South. I love y'all so much. I appreciate how y'all show up. For us, I'm a beneficiary of the Live Life program and the Peer Group, so I love y'all. Steven, I see you. Make some noise. But yes. But no, stigma first and foremost, because I remember one of the healthiest professional relationships I know over ballroom is the relationship with the CBOs in ballroom, namely that's where the origins and inception of the Kiki scene, which I am now icon in that scene, right? So before I was even integrated into that, I knew sometimes the stigma associated with certain organizations, even sometimes I remember hearing feedback how even some people in the community being too familiar with even knowing some of the peer educators, because they're their good girlfriends. So if I go, and mind you, to the stand support group or go get tested, and some come back, the girl's gonna clock my teeth, even though we have HIPAA laws and things. But stigma is one that I've seen being in the churches.
Stigma definitely is a big issue, and it's still something that we're still combating even now in 2024.
So you're saying like anonymity is an issue?
That sounds like some fruit snacks, but yes. I love that. Yes.
Would you mind elaborating on that?
Well, ballroom is a messy community, and I think that, you know, when you're going to get services, it's a very personal thing, and people don't want their personal business out there. And so, like I know there have been some great therapy services at some of the organizations, and when I've tried talking to people about maybe checking that out, they don't feel comfortable going to where they Vogue once a week for their therapy session. So I'm just thinking in the moment, what are ways to maybe create a little bit more separation so that it is safe?
I get what you mean by that. So like, basically just creating a bridge from it. So like, it may not happen in that same location, but being able to refer the people over to the places and having
Right.
that information available.
Yeah. So you like adding value to that. For example, me being based in West Adams City, so close to the Center South, knowing that there are services in Hollywood, or of course there's a different staff, and different things. So I see what you're saying to that in that expansion. So yeah.
Anyone else want to answer the question?
Sure, I feel like it has a barrier could also be leadership. If the leadership is not normalizing going to get tested, if the leadership is not normalizing coming to events like this and having those conversations with the house and with the kids, then you'll have the overlay of, oh my God, they're gonna know my tea, it's not a comfortable or safe space. So it's up to the leadership to a lot of times to create that safe space. So we can start having those conversations.
So I just agree with everybody, and to piggyback a little bit too, speaking from like the mental health perspective of things, just so you're aware too, like cultural competency is a big deal, right? Not just in healthcare services, but in mental health. So utilizing the spaces like Center South and Centro, that are specifically for the queer POC community, and knowing that if you feel uncomfortable with your therapist, if you feel like you're having to over-explain your identity, that they're not being culturally competent or open to that you do have the option to request to be changed. And to know that, it's your prerogative and they don't have a right to judge you based on their perception of who you are. So the core of it is about selfhood, right? About being validated and being seen for who you are, and providing competent services with that community, and that's the goal. So I know it can be hard, it can be intimidating when those needs are not being met to raise our voices, but know that we are doing the best that we can to make sure that people can also see themselves reflected in the staff, not just have to make do with what's available. Right, which has historically, unfortunately, always been the case for the most part.
Beautifully said. Thank you for answering that. Moving on to the next question. Creating inclusive environments. What strategies can we use to create more inclusive and safe spaces for ballroom youth to learn about sex and relationships?
Honestly, I would say if sex was a more casual topic, and sexual prevention was a more casual topic, because I don't feel there's a lot of education within sexual prevention. Like the other day had to educate some kids on what undetectable was, because they just thought that a person who is positive undetectable means like, oh, I can still contract HIV. So I think having, as much as ballroom, since ballroom is a very sexual freedom space and sexual positive space, having people who walk like sex siren that people look up to or appeal to, speak on things about humanity rather than just not being the appeal, but being that, taking care of yourself is also important when being involved in ballroom and walking sex siren. I think more people would come out to more people will come out to be more open to the idea of talking about sexual prevention.
And also too, one thing I would love I'm seeing now with community is that we're kind of starting this initiative, like we call it Beyond the Ball. So we know ballroom to me is the nucleus of like queer fellowship, right? But also now that we have that mixed network and let me see, a pillar, right? Going to different programs as such, integrating and innovating how we also fellowship off the floor, whether it be the barbecues and then incentivizing certain programming for attending, right? So I'm seeing that now more than ever, with them being a part of the narrative of the talks. But yeah, let's talk.
I think also ballroom's getting younger and younger. And I have a 6-year-old who's, you know, sees mom in ballroom, does chants about ballroom, but I have to figure out how and when can I bring her into this space, right? And I get hit up all the time about people. I've got, you know, I have a kid who's 8 who's obsessed. I have, and you know, how is ballroom going to protect kids that young while still being authentic to what ballroom is about? I think this is a step beyond the question you asked, but it did get me thinking about, we're seeing younger and younger kids getting involved, and we should definitely not be encouraging sex to some of them who are very, very young, right? So how do we keep it a safe space, keep the conversations healthy, but then also protect from? I don't know the answer, I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
Can I? And I know this is not the question, but I want to say to that, we need to keep that responsibility to the parent. We cannot continue to allow ballroom to be responsible for so much. It's still a culture, it's still something that has been around, and if the parent feels like they're educated enough for that child to be a part of this at that time, that is up to the parent. We can't cater, but we can have spaces that cater to them, but for a main ball, that may not be for your child.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. No, it got the wheel going, because I do think about this with my kid, but I have recently been hit up by a parent with a 9-year-old trans kid and trying to figure out what to do with that situation. Because you want to cultivate the desire and the passion, right? So, yeah, I mean, there may have to be a third scene, the baby scene.
That's really what I find boring, but immediately too. It's just like having a kid ball.
Yeah.
You know, but that's like, because, you know, we know how the ballroom scene can be.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes it's not the environment for kids. You know, even though there may be this desire to explore this, you know, it's a very adult thing. You know, but it's definitely something that doesn't necessarily need to be excluded. It just needs to be looked at differently and maybe created in a third space.
And adding value to it being created, as we all know, the West Coast sensation, Mike Dwala, Ali Mark Jacobs, Juicy Couture, who busted into the scene about going on 2 years ago, and working closely with her mom, we do innovate, making sure not only her mom is in every ball with us, right? But also certain leaders of the houses, making sure we have the touch points, even when she's competing, when she's not competing, and even her being in the space. We know there's still certain categories that she don't even watch the ball. Like even in Kiki, she don't watch sex appeal, she's at the mainstream, we don't allow her to watch the sex categories. And what I've also been seeing, because I'm from the Midwest, St. Louis, what Bill said?
Yeah!
He's out 314 from St. Louis, love my heart, anyway, thank God. But yes, what I'm seeing as well is that some of the programming is going to the collegiate and educational space. So we can kind of let the kids know what they get themselves into, if that makes sense. Because we have like runway troops in St. Louis, little girls, and I gagged because I threw a ball there in May, and they threw a mini function. We was at the club, and it was my niece is like, girl, what you doing here, right? So to that point, there are certain spaces where we're coming to them to let them know what they're getting themselves into, but still, like you said, watching that limits. So it's something that's being talked about now. That's in motion, let's be clear.
I believe having opportunities and creating moments like this is important when it comes to like merging the world. Even asking that question, it poses us to really dive deep even within ourselves. I also believe that when it comes to, when I think of ballroom just in general, I think of empowerment and empowering, right? And so when you're merging both of those worlds together, you are also empowering people to take charge of their sexuality. And by that doesn't necessarily always mean just saying yes. It's also knowing how to say no with conviction and also knowing what is good for you. And a lot of us don't, like, I'm gonna speak for myself, a lot of times, you know, I have came in contact with not just opportunity, but places and spaces of things that I didn't know that I need at that moment until that moment arrived. So I think it's really important that we do merge and entwine more of our programs, not just for like STI and prevention, but also like mental health spaces, as well as like the workshops that Lit Life and LOCA and Shades of Community provide. Because oftentimes people don't know what is out there, and then they don't know what they need once again until we come across it. And so I think just as long as we're constantly making an effort and also making sure that the people that are showing up to these balls are authentic and that are really true and dedicated to the cause, because people can recognize that as well, I think that's also very important. And I don't think it's just completely all on ballroom scene, and it's not just like their duty, like we're responsible as well. We should make ourselves just as much knowledgeable about what is going on in the ballroom scene, who's a part of the ballroom scene, who are, like knowing the fact that it's getting younger and younger, that's something that, you know, I wasn't educated about until today. So now I can also prepare myself when it comes to, like when we start to vend at these places to make sure like, okay, it's a possibility that there might be kids here. How do I also make sure I have like the appropriate material for them as well? So like, I think like you're ahead of the curve when it comes to not only asking these questions, but creating environment and spaces like this.
The thing that comes to my mind when I'm like hearing all these guys' comments is like, you know, this can be an opportunity to like create something for youth. And this can be the start of this education. And not necessarily having to like focus on the sexual things, but relationships. And not just romantic, like friendships and family and stuff like that. Because being involved is like a huge part of that too. Is, you know, so doing these things and creating stuff for the youth at a young age, that can be like the focus is focusing on the family, focusing on being encouraged by someone, empowered, you know? Yes. Moving on. So addressing stigma. So addressing stigma is critical. Crucial. How can we effectively address and reduce the stigma surrounding sexual health within the ballroom community?
I think it's important for us to identify what those stigmas are and why they're in place, so we have to get to the root of that. And sometimes that involves us even starting with ourselves first. Like, what are some stigmas that I may have? And addressing that first. And then that way we can be able to help one another as well.
And can you state the question one more time?
So, how can we effectively address and reduce the stigma surrounding sexual health within the ballroom community? I got some really thought-provoking questions. I'm sorry.
No, for sure.
I was going to say, as a house parent, one thing that I have known is taking what your kids say personally and like really listening to them. Because I think a lot of times people forget that people come to balls and they do everything in the balls and they feel it and everything. Outside of the ballroom scene, like they have to go back to life and they have to go back to like being threatened with being raped or, you know, food or having to survive. So I think honestly taking what kids tell you and taking it to heart and really thinking like, okay, how can I really help you? Because I feel that a lot of times people put themselves in these leadership roles and they go, I'm just here because you're my ballroom kid and that's it, rather than there's a lot of these kids are coming because they need refuge and support.
Yeah, and I want to add value to that. Humanize them. I know, especially to our trans brothers and sisters, especially even in the ballroom space, because a lot of people don't know, that's why I'm real big on the history. And we stand on the backs of the femme queens who started this space out of the shit that they were receiving, you see. So making sure, we, like you said, we listen. We go up and ask our questions. We fellowship genuinely and not only fellowship and see when we're in that competitive space and state. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
I would say as well, meeting them where they are, in the sense of understanding what they need as a human first. Understanding that I need housing, I need food, I need clothes, and then once I have those things, then I can think about this. But if I'm not giving the resources, or if I'm not providing or helping in those areas, you don't want to hear about sexual health. You don't want to hear about getting tested because I'm hungry. So.
Man.
Yes, that's definitely very true. You know, it's like people, when they're struggling, they're going to want, that's going to be the first thing on their mind rather than going and getting the HIV test or taking care of things.
And I just wanted to add too, so much about like ballroom and queerness is about creating community, right? And community also means listening to each other and uplifting ourselves, right? And then really validating our identities and providing a safe space where those identities can be explored and expressed in a safe way, in as safe a way as it can be, right? Because again, our community is so much about found family, right? And we already experience so much rejection in our lives in general. So it's important, like everybody else said, right, to provide a space that feels safe, that feels validating, where you can explore in a way that is not stigmatized or you're ashamed for, but still providing the resources of like freedom of choice doesn't necessarily mean freedom of consequences, right? So safer sex is still important, having those conversations that can be difficult, and also talking about like, the variety within that community and what those practices can be, right? And allowing people to define those things for themselves. And I think ultimately that creates trust, which strengthens the community.
Very well said. That makes me think back of like watching like Hollywood, what is it? Paris is Burning. This conversation is reminding me about, because a lot of the times people came to these houses because that was their family, that was their refuge, that was their safe space, that was a place where they can eat, that's a place that they can be themselves and not feel judged. You know, so to know that that is still, this is still the vibe, you know, so that is the core and that is the heart of all. Okay, moving on. So promoting safe practices. So finally on this topic, what are some innovative approaches to promote safe sex practices within the ballroom community? And how can we leverage the influence of ballroom culture to spread positive messages about sexual health?
One of the things, even like now, what's happening, I've seen Gilead actually partner with a lot of the major balls.
Yeah.
So even like, for example, what was so cute, one of the grand prizes from the Long Van Ball last year was actually your house had to come up with a safer sex campaign. And that we submitted, right? And I think it was like a multi-$1,000 prize for the house. And that was actually one of the first categories released before the 11,000, right? And even now on our coast, Jamora, the HLA just launched a $5,000 video contest for our up-and-coming Notorious Ball that's coming up. So that's another innovative approach to where we're allowing our community to stay at the forefront. And also, you not only use their talents of before off as well. Because the one thing I love about ballroom, we have the most creative entities and entities in all the world, let's be clear. All the girls want to be us. Let's be clear. So, but yes, so in that, we are also going digital in that way. And being present with the time in that. So shout out to Ballroom.
It's kind of the same thing. I mean, that's kind of one of the best ways I think right now, especially with the categories having like the sponsorship behind it that's so big and such a creative category. Like with AHF, I think at the West Coast Awards Ball, it's like $5K for like a creative outfit using all condoms. So like things like that will not only make the girls come out, but kind of get them maybe more excited to learn about sexual prevention, education, all that good stuff.
And also add value to that, like, you literally have to submit video to AHF, and they're sending you boxes of condoms, so you already stocking yourself up for you and your good girlfriends to have a good $5. How you anyway? Let me yield to my. You see what I'm saying? So yeah.
There was another example that I seen of this where I forgot which ball it was, but like everyone had to incorporate a HIV awareness ribbon on their outfit, you know, and it had to be there. If you didn't have it, you got shot. You know, so I think stuff like that, you know, is really good. And then also too, you know, even like with like creating the condom kits and stuff like that, well, creating an outfit out of condoms, it's bringing the creativity with the education. And I think that's what makes learning fun, you know, or makes it more interesting or appealing. It's like when you can be creative with it, you know, so yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I'm going to be attempting something. I don't know if it's going to work, but in October, I do an event called Banshee Ball. It's I've been doing it for 11 years.
Yes.
It is now Banshee Ball Foundation, and I'm launching that in October at the Museum of Contemporary Art. And we're doing a ball on Saturday, but on Friday, we're doing something similar to this, doing a lecture workshop series at the museum, and trying to figure out how I'm going to phrase this to the Alliance. But I'm going to attempt to say that every house that wants to walk the ball has to be present for the lecture workshop series. Now, I'm not saying every member has to be there, but you have to have 2 members from your house present. So we'll see if it works.
No, let's try, you know.
But I'm attempting something new with that,
Yeah.
because that, you know, and like this right here, you know, this is fantastic. Y'all have done an amazing job. There should be more people here.
I agree.
There should be more people here. And this is the stuff, honestly, this West Coast has had some issues in the last couple of years. And there's been a lot of fighting, a lot of communication issues. There's been some violence issues. And these are the conversations we need to be having, because we need to reunite. We have our houses, we have our families, and it's so cliche because this gets said on all the Alliance calls, but we're one big family. We need to go a step further and really, really function like a unit out here. So, creative ways to make sure that everyone gets involved in these sorts of things. Because there's a lot of people in this community that are doing Olive and Greg. Everyone here is like doing the work. We gotta make it a requirement to show up.
Well, I'm gonna speak personally for me. I think that community engagement is amazing and very important, but to be realistic, I work with a lot of youth, and I talk to a lot of youth, and one thing that I know is that when we do like big events like this, youth attention span is not about to sit there and listen to this whole thing, especially if there's nothing that's engaging them. And also, with that being said, I think that you need the right people who the youth can relate to and feel comfortable with to lead these things, because if you just put anybody in there and be like, oh, we're gonna do these things, that does not mean people are gonna come out. Like, people also gotta be comfortable with the people who are leading it, as well as, I feel like if there was like a lecture that was like 30 minutes, and then like you did like a ball category, and then like something else happened, keep them interactive and moving, it'll work out better, rather than us sitting here talking for a whole hour. They're gonna tune out. I promise you, they're gonna tune out within like 15, 20 minutes, especially people who are in survival needs and people who need things. They're probably giving like, well, I don't wanna sit here for a whole hour when I'm trying to get something to eat, and I gotta sit here for a whole hour to eat to get some food. Like, it's a lot. So I think that also needs to be taken into consideration when planning out these events and these lectures and panels and stuff.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you on that, and that's the innovation that you need, is to start, like I just said earlier, bringing the creativity to the education. You know, so you're on something. And honestly too, yeah, sometimes people can't sit down and listen to a whole conversation for an hour.
Fantastic catering, by the way.
Oh,
Okay, give it to Brad or my mother.
I just want to do this. Don't touch my plate.
Oh, there she is right there.
Yeah. And I think one thing that's so affirming about this conversation that all the questions thus far, things are set in motion. And you know, from the youth, from the innovation, like we have tangible examples of colonizing everything you're stating. So kudos to you, kid. And this outfit, on my mama, on my hood, okay? Yeah.
I had to show, I had to match the event. I haven't worn this shirt in years.
That waist is still there. One prodigy. I get better than that, so yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. So now let's discuss the substance abuse. What unique challenges do LGBTQ plus individuals, particularly those in the ballroom community, face regarding substance abuse?
So I think somebody said one more time. Yeah.
One more time? One more time? Okay. What are unique challenges? What unique challenges do LGBTQ plus individuals, particularly those in the ballroom community, face regarding substance abuse?
Wow. Ladies first.
To be honest, being in the ballroom scene, there's a lot of substance abuse, but pretty much a lot of it comes from, in my opinion, that most people I know who have done drugs and substances do it to distract themselves from things that are happening. And you know, when you distract yourself and then you get to go to a ball where everything is like make-believe for the next few hours, and you get to feel good, you get to feel validated, and you get to feel supported and everything. It takes your mind off of those things that are happening. And then when the ball's over, you gotta go back to normal life. But at that point, it's like, okay, now I'm back into like my situation, so I need to do something else to keep my mind distracted so I can, you know, keep going on and on. I think that's like a repetitive thing that happens within like, not just ballroom, but in life in general.
And also too, I think like you said, it's one of the ugly secrets of ballroom. And I know there was a documentary, what was the Crystal Diaries, that was released not too long ago. And that opened my eyes because even when I would attend balls, it wasn't like outward, but the girls who do their thing, you know, they had their little huddles and you know, so no shade, you know, the bumpers, but you know, let's keep it 100. So I didn't always witness it. So by the time that documentary had exposed, and then of course we all know we see some of the girls who got their rehab skills and this, that, and the third. We see how we overtake and consume some, but like you said, it's very present for sure. One thing's for sure. Okay,
so in the question, that unique word is sticking out to me because when you actually get to the root of who we are in ballroom, it's actually not unique from our community. We're all unloading traumas, and because of the traumas that we've gone through as a community, it causes us to use substances or things that make us feel good for that moment. And when we go back to creating these safe spaces where people feel like they can unpack and you have someone trained, and as a house leader, I feel like every house leader should be trained in unpacking traumas. I am. And sitting down with those individuals and helping them unpack and really get to the root of the issue so they can go get the help they need and stay at the energy where they're at the help. You get what I'm saying? Like, we have to create these spaces and we have to understand that there is a root of it. And we can relate. Just because I may have not decided to do that, I could be just the same way, you know? Yeah. So we have to make sure we're there and creating the spaces.
It's really taking that parent role involvement seriously, because I'm a strong believer that parents create the environments that the kids want to be in. That is their responsibility.
But see, this is sort of uncomfortable to say, but this new generation of kids that are coming in, a lot of them don't use drugs. A lot of them don't even drink. These Gen Zers are different.
Yeah.
And
they do.
I really, this is where I'm getting to the uncomfortable thing. I think it's the older generation actually that is the problem, because we are creatures of habit and we have coping mechanisms. And it is the older generations that's handing the drugs to the kids.
Ooh. Call it out.
Talk about it.
And I'm just gonna stop there because I don't want to get emotional. So.
Okay, and I think to merge the previous 2 points, I love that you brought that up, my West Coast princess, Yaki Mugler. That also too, the trauma show up in different ways, whereas, like, you know, I don't smoke or drink, but pray for me, you put some bread and sugar in front of me. I think, you know, especially before a ball gets lead, you know, I mean, thank you, Ladino, will host this moment, so I love that you said it, because even in our generation, you know, it can show up in different ways, right? So identifying, even if it is not a substance, but what are some of these behaviors? So,
And I think maybe we need to, community-wise and organization-wise, not forget about the older people that, right? There's so much focus on the youth, but
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, because I even see like a shift even in my program. Because my program used to be, the age range used to be 18 to 29, but then it got pushed to 34. You know, because we do have to make sure that we don't forget about our older generation, because they were youth too, you know. So it's making sure that we're capturing everyone that we can. You
and
know?
they were youth at a different time.
Exactly.
That's what I was just going to say. The difference is the help that we have now is not the help that they had back then. And it is our job to reach back. It's our job to make sure they're okay. It's our job to make sure they have the help they need. So, and not putting them in positions they're not ready for, or I won't even say qualified for, not in a position to inhabit. We have to be each other's keepers.
Okay.
When I think of like substance abuse, we also have to take into consideration like the crack epidemic that took place in the 80s, right? And then we also have to take into consideration that a lot of times it is passed down to us through like our, I'm gonna call it genetics, but like more likely we can probably have like a grandparent or a parent directly that was substance abuse. So that makes us a lot more susceptible if we already have that in our family. And then you also add that to other traumas, like as far as being a person of color, someone who identifies as someone who's from the LGBT community. I believe a study had just released that most of the youth that are currently homeless are a part of the LGBTQ community as well. And so a lot of times too, some people indulge in things just to, like we say, survive, not necessarily like, okay, I don't, release this, like do drugs or things of this nature, but I need a place to sleep at night, I need somewhere to eat. This is what this person's doing. I'm gonna do this as a survival tactic or mechanism. So I think it's also important that when we're talking about having like opportunities to talk about like sexual health, that we're also providing them resources for housing. We're also providing them resources for like the food pantry, clothes, and not just that, but also providing them with resources for employment as well, where they don't have to worry about code switching either. And that's our responsibility, like as you were saying, we are our founding leaders now. We are them now, so it's important for us to do that. And to also piggyback more off of what you were saying, Marvin, you're absolutely right. Some of us don't engage in, a lot of people don't know this, but like sex is also the #1 tool as a way of self-utilization. People just think it's just drugs, it's just
It could definitely be addiction
alcohol.
too.
It's actually sex, and the reason why sex get swept under the radar so much because it's not as frowned upon. And so sometimes people are engaging in sexual behaviors that they themselves probably, like I can speak for myself, like it took my mentor, rest in peace, Della Gilden, to tell me, like, just because you're in a relationship with someone, it doesn't mean that you owe them your body. You still have autonomy. I had another woman tell me that. Like, I thought if I'm in a relationship with you, I have to give you my body. Like, now imagine that, I had this conversation with, exactly, and I was 23 years old, when she told me that. And you would think this would be common knowledge, so it's not. So I think it's important once again, that we are having these conversations because it's motivating us to think more outside of the box and think more critically when it comes to how do we like capture those that are falling through the cracks and creating more environments for them to where they are secure.
Helping them knock down those barriers.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. How can we promote a culture of harm reduction and mutual support within the ballroom community? And then what are some practical steps that houses can take to integrate harm reduction practices into their activities? Y'all need me to repeat?
I like a solution-driven question because this is heavy. But maybe like one of the things I was thinking about, a lot of balls that I've been going to recently, well, a few, here and there, LA or around the country or whatever, they, I find like tables and organizations that have like kits that, provide help for somebody that may be about to overdose or whatever. Like, these are signs that you may look for. This is how you clean this or do this. Or like if you're gonna do the drug, or if you're gonna do your thing, this is how you do it. Or if you're hanging out with somebody that's doing the thing, this is what you look for. That could be a sign about something that's bad about to happen. And I think at first I was like, oh wow, they're promoting doing drugs, that's crazy. But now I'm like, oh wait, I get it. It's here, it's prevalent, it's a thing that we do, it's part of the culture of the ballroom. So like, this is something that should be at a lot of balls or, should be accessible for people that's in the ballroom scene and, that's partying and doing their thing. So I thought it was kind of cool to end up seeing that. And I'm like, oh wow, how do we get more of these types of representatives or kits or whatever at these balls and at every single function, mini ball, major ball, whatever the case may be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's us being it's us being aware of that and making sure, knowing that, this is something that can possibly happen in this environment. So let's reduce the harm. Probably let's have Narcan there. Making sure water's accessible. And things along those lines.
I said it best, free ball at the balls, all 2020. But to Sue's point as well, where, because I'm a firm believer that prevention is better than cure. So even that's how I knew that fentanyl epidemic was present as well. Because, we see the Narcan shot, look at y'all living by example. But also too, in addition to the Narcan, seeing the fentanyl test strips on the table. So as you see Connie equipping the girls to, with the tools, like you said, to see it and see the signs. Because, especially coming to ballroom and everything, I grew up proved, I grew up Pentecostal, I love the Lord, and so ballroom, and even being in the ballroom was like, bro, what? No tea. It's a whole new world for me, no aerial. So, certain things I was delayed with, so it was, like you said, going to some of these CBOs and seeing certain tools that I knew that more than ever, like, a new war was among us, right, at present, but going to that harm reduction. That's why I visit these tables, not for the free water bottles and t-shirts, but to see what the girls is getting themselves into. No shame.
I think also, I've been seeing, Rich LA's been doing some, meditation and yoga classes, but, there's, different outlets for, processing, right? Tools.
Yeah.
New tools.
And what they call is a new initiative they call Category is Healing.
Yeah.
And I love that. And that also go back to that 5K category. It's an extension of that. So we love you, Greg. We love you, Reach LA. We're so proud of you.
Yeah, and continuing to try to normalize that. Because I tried to get my kids a few years ago to do some yoga with me, and some of them were into it, some of them were there like, but
the Anthony's girl.
it'd be good for all of us.
Word. I love my Anthony's. I love you, Ron.
Well, those are definitely good ways to trying to be innovative and incorporate these things and trying to find different outlets to relieve our traumas and stuff like that along those lines. So thank you guys for doing the work that you guys do. You guys kind of already answered this question around the underlying issues, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into mental health. So next, let's talk about mental health. What are the unique mental health challenges faced by LGBTQ plus individuals, particularly in the ballroom community? I feel like we kind of answered some of this a little bit, but if anyone wants to elaborate, you can.
And I just heard it too, like they said, you know, we already spoke about the traumas, but also one thing I love too that a lot of, like I said, a new generation, the GNC is also the euphoria, you know, literally how a lot of people are expressing this euphoria as well, you know, when it comes to our trans and non-binary GNC individuals. And I love too that with that movement, it does hold even our ballroom leaders and alliances accountable. Now more than ever, shout out to my niece Toby, who we spoke to make sure that we have a GNC advocacy board now for as we know how to also teach the category and or judge the category properly, right? Because ballroom, since the beginning of time, has always been a deficit in the inception of identity and agency, queer bodies and identities, right? So as you see, we're still leading that fight. And I see we're also holding ourselves accountable in that fight as well. So that's another one as well, as for you.
Accountability is key.
Yeah.
True, and then,
Well, I feel like we kind of addressed the question already throughout all the conversation that we've been having, right? But to just kind of put a bow in it, I think a lot of it is just addressing stigma and being culturally open and humble, right? Being present, being mindful, knowing that every behavior has a reason why it exists, right? Whether it be like when we're talking about like sexual health or substance use. It's not that people don't understand that those things can be harmful, but sometimes the good that it does, the perceived good outweighs the perceived bad, right? So when you engage with someone, really try to understand them and be present for them and really listen to what they're saying and then meet them halfway, right? And finding, like everybody else was saying, right, finding healthier coping mechanisms. Also seeing yourself reflected in the spaces, right? Having more people of color, having more spaces that are open to different experiences, different gender orientations, different sexualities, right? All of those things have always been very diverse and very open, but it's really difficult to find healthcare services that are aware of those things. And you know, it's important to like foster places like this where we can have those open conversations and where people don't feel like they have to overextend and over-explain themselves, right? To try and feel validated, because that's what causes the problem to begin with, right?
I was gonna say just having healthcare providers understand what intersectionality is and how that's very important to our community, because we have so many people in our community that are marginalized and some are more than others. And just like they said down there, resources. For example, I live in the valley. So living in the valley, there's no resources. I have to travel all the way over here to get HRT, or I have to go all the way to South LA to get tested, or down to Reach LA. So me being all the way in the valley, I am lucky enough to have transportation and support system that can get me here and there, but there are a lot of people out in the valley who do not have that accessibility, which makes it hard for them to get the resources that they need. And so then even playing to mental health, I know a lot of youth have told me, like, I would love to have mental health, but a lot of the places that provide it are full. So my only option is to go pay for it, which they don't have the finances, or I gotta travel X, Y, and Z, and they literally tell me, like, if I have to travel like 20, 30 miles to go get mental health services, I'm not gonna go, because there's no point in me going over there, because I'm not gonna want to go. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration with a lot more like organizations, a lot more people within the scene as well, and a lot more parents to understand. If more parents in the scene understand what intersectionality was, I think that might help out, with a few of the mental health epidemics.
It sounds like the centers need to move to Zoom.
There's a lot of telehealth.
So that people don't have to travel.
I know that we do telehealth at the center, right, Dr. Rose?
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, so I see that, like, especially after COVID, I feel like a lot of things started shifting towards like digital, and because it was like, oh, we can do this, so a lot of people are like going that route. But there are people too who like to be in person. Like, I'm that type of person. Like, I was going to therapy but like there's like a missing aspect where like I feel like
It's
I wanna-
isolating.
Yeah, like I want to like be there with their kids so like they can heal me, you know.
Yeah.
So like I know that's just me, but I think there's probably people out there who want that type of experience, you know. But then they can reach those barriers of like having to travel like 15 miles away, or having to pay for it, or don't have insurance and stuff like that. Those are real barriers that are around.
And to piggyback off of what you said, a main thing that I also, like a main thing for all these things that we talked about so far, sexual health, substance abuse, and mental health, is, which is hard because they're government funded programs, so they really can't do as much.
Yes.
But if people were more personal with the people that they are working with, I think that would make a big difference, because people need to feel safe. Like it's more so people need to feel safe and feel welcome to even want to be in there. For example, I wouldn't be a house mother with kids if they didn't feel safe to come to my house and safe to talk to me about these things. And I feel when I have talked to people within different organizations about mental health or sexual prevention, it's very much like, you do this, blah, 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 but it's never like, I understand where you're coming from. I understand that you're trans. So me talking to you about PrEP is going to be very different than me talking to Byron about PrEP. Or me talking to you about your mental health is going to be very different than me talking to Isla about her mental health. I don't think people understand that. And I think that's like the gap that's missing for people to want to come and be like, I would love to get the resources, but you're not understanding, you're not hearing what I have to say, what I need.
I love it. And also too, Cliff, I'm happy you brought up that thing about accessibility too, because I'm also seeing how now the industry is trying to innovate, even like the at-home kids, in addition to like the Zoom and things. Even not only HIV, but STI as well, and the inception of like Doxy Pep. So I'm seeing that there are various attempts of meeting the girls right where they are, because let's be honest, loves LA down, but it's a very draining city. So in addition to that, we think, even me, girl, I'm even thinking a haircut. Girl, 30 minutes away, the Uber's giving this. Girl, I ain't that ugly. No shame, I ain't that ugly. So sometimes the thing is like, girl, no shame. Am I itching that? Am I really showing symptoms? You see what I'm saying? Like, you're paying. So that do actually factor the girls into their commute in their day-to-day life, especially if they're trying to survive. So I love that you brought that thing about accessibility and convenience, because it's the real thing. Especially this microwave culture, this girl. Hey Siri, open my door. No tea, come on now.
The world is definitely changing, so we have to also change along with it as well too. Cool beans, let's see. I feel like you guys kind of like hit mental health out the park, so like I feel like the questions I would ask would be repetitive. So we're gonna go ahead and move into our ending segment, which is intersectionality and collaboration. So finally, let's discuss this. So how can we foster better collaboration between sexual health organizations and the ballroom community? And what are some successful examples of partnerships between health organizations and cultural communities?
Let me take the run with it. Go ahead, step on. First and foremost, shout out to the LGBT Center, Center South. Literally, for real. We just did a successful ball for the city 2 weeks ago that Mayor Bass attended. Do you see what I'm saying? Also, right before that, we collaborated for a Juneteenth ball. And I won't forget, last year, the first ball I ever threw was right across the street. When we gave Big Frida the White Arrested Award, Grammys weekend. That was the first ball I ever threw. And that launched my ballroom career. And now I can do icon because of the balls I throw out here. So y'all are living examples of what y'all impact can be. So I love you, Stephen. I love you, Evan. I love you, Center South. And that's why I always show up for y'all. It's an organic yes. No Whole Foods needed. So do you see what I'm saying? So with that being said, y'all are living examples of said question. And even this event right now. Beat the fruit. So, but yeah, these are the successful examples. Like I said, not only in motion, but past tense. And even with that same formula, I've been able to take it to other CBOs. Also, my first ball of this year was a successful collaboration with the SoCal Club, where we did the Prepped and Ready Ball. So even to that, where yes, thank you Swift for all your support with that too. So where even all the categories, they open a clinic like so the girls can also be incentivized for testing. But even all the categories is bringing a touch of blue in honor of the blue pill, right? So we're making sure that when the girls show up, that they're educated, or and we'll name the next ball, but we're very intentional about D&D anyway. So very intentional about what their collaboration looks like. So thank you for being a living example, Center South LGBT Los Angeles Center. Yes, for legacy, Sister Candace. No, for sure, I love y'all down. There's no,
I know. You show up.
I love
For
y'all.
4 years. I haven't seen you.
I love y'all, for real. I loved you first. Yeah.
Do y'all need me to repeat the question?
I feel like you did a great job.
I love you, man. That's why I'm gonna be like, oh, I love you.
Okay. So, moving on then. How can we incorporate an intersectional approach to addressing health issues in the ballroom community? And what are the benefits of understanding and addressing the multiple overlapping identities in community members?
I was gonna say that I feel when it comes to mental health, this might sound crazy, but I think people who deal with mental health services and how it relates to ballroom individuals, I think that those people need to be involved in the scene. I think they need to be kind of like at the ball to see how people interact with everybody, how people understand and live day by day. And I feel if they had that more of approach, then it would be a better understanding of what needs and resources people need in regards to mental health when it comes to ballroom individuals. Because a lot of ballroom individuals, like I said, are not gonna just come right out and be like, I need this, blah, 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 this and that. And if they did, it's definitely not giving, I want to make sure I drive 30 minutes away, or I want to sit through an hour, it will give, if that person's there, then they'll understand what's happening.
Yeah. And I love that too, because that also reminded me to Alice's point earlier, because sometimes even the stigma trauma is associated with previous, even ballroom spectators, where they I used to say it like this, and that's what it is. And we're in a new era, a new age, and as I've been stated so many times that for me, this is one of the most nutritious eras of ballroom I've ever witnessed. Of course, there's been more visibility on it, so there's more accountability, right, and awareness to, we gotta, straighten up and fly right, but there are a lot of what the girls be, I used to know the balls back in the day, well, no shade, this thing, that's back in the day. And that house probably closed down by now, this thing. So no shade. Come out and see the new girls. The they them, the GNC, okay?
Well, something we haven't quite touched on, but I think you just bridged to, is the fact that we are in a new age, and ballroom is now an industry in itself, right? And there's a lot of money, there's a lot of opportunity. Things that I see a lot of success, a lot of highs, and then people crashing. I see drugs come back in when they're in the valley so that they can get back to that feeling, because the highs that are happening now with TV and with the money that's coming through, it's very stimulating, it's exciting because people are becoming entrepreneurial, people are finding career paths for themselves. And so, ballroom has been about this conversation for so long about, abandonment and trauma and finding your family. Well, now we have to have conversations about entering the corporate world. How mental health in the corporate world is a whole other game. It's like a machine that eats you alive, right? Or dealing with fame and then having the crash from that. You're not always going to have that stimulation, and there's a whole mental health thing to deal with there. So I feel like we're about to have to add a whole bunch of new levels and services, because there's some new problems coming around the corner.
Absolutely. I actually never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
So you just like shine the light on a whole new thing. Because it is true. Like, especially with like the TV shows that came out and the popularity around the ballroom and everything like that. It can definitely create opportunities for people to search out.
Well,
Certain people.
on a personal level, so I came into ballroom in my early mid-30s. So I was a full-grown woman. I'd already been low-key legend in a whole other underground subculture movement in my 20s. And had had success, toured all over Europe, performing club music. Thought I was gonna make it. Moved to LA thinking I was gonna make it. I went through the ringer and learned that fame is really an illusion, right? So then, jump ahead, so I got involved in ballroom, jump ahead a bunch of years, Legendary's happening. And I'll never forget being in Connecticut when we were filming season 1, and bless people's hearts, but they're like, I'm gonna be so famous, this is gonna happen, and da 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 da. And I remember sitting with my Ebony kids and being like, this is just a gig. This is one gig that's gonna lead to another gig if you hustle it right, if you keep your head on. This one thing is not gonna make it all go away. And so, anyway, I don't know, I just took us on a whole other tangent, I apologize, but I do think this is, success is now a conversation that ballroom needs to start having, is how to deal with success.
I love that you brought that up too, Isla, because I do speak to the duality of the community and the duality of people's success. Even to the point yesterday, Gigi Couture Revlon was the first film queen to grace the Olympics opening ceremony, right? Shout out to Gigi, shout out to Juicy, shout out to Revlon. Yeah. But like you said too, even myself, I also teach how I've been on even the more business or lucrative end of ballroom, because as we also know, it's a self-sufficient culture and community to where the effects don't by themselves, right? You need to contribute your parents, but somebody has to foot that expense. So I love that you brought up that duality, and even myself, I've been lucky to officially launch an LLC because I have been on the consulting end for a lot of ballroom, and it does keep me busy, praise God. And that's where even like now, I've now started, shout out to Gilead, we just got a grant to where I'm actually trying to launch the, it's about knees. Who's that? So, so to that point where we are doing professional development. So of course, not only outside myself, but I can teach our generation how to curate pitch decks, email etiquette, how to speak to funders, and also retain those relationships. Because as you said, kid, that's why I was an organic yes for the collaboration with Center South. Even before I started throwing the balls, I was at the CBOs, engaging in programming. You know how many lip light bags I got? You know what I'm saying? You know, so to that point, so by the time I transitioned in the business realm, and of course, I was a ballroom kid, those relationships and that support was organic already because the relationship was already present. So yeah, I love that you brought that up too, Isla.
Yes, those are the conversations that definitely need to be had. And, go ahead, Asia.
What this conversation has also taught me, in particularly, is that organizations like ours, like Center South, and it's important that we do have a stronger presence in the ballroom scene, and that means that we have to open up a whole new ballroom department. That's what needs to be happening, because seriously, because I'm like, it's growing, it's getting
I can afford it.